I'm not matching profiles, I'm matching people. How far are you willing to go to become you? I'm asked that same question every morning. The connection has been lost to each other and to ourselves. Toxicity continues to rise while self-worth continues to fall. This was created out of sheer necessity, the desire to create change and curve the culture back to connection. My journey has rerouted my idea of who I'm becoming. Connection begins within, continues outward. Love you, then love me, in that order. If I'm about to get uncomfortable, then so are you. I'm learning who I am. Now I want to get to know you. Connection over convenience. Testing, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Yeah, that's good. As long as she can hear you, that's good.
You can hear me, Abbie, right?
I can.
Okay, so we are, it's going to, this is the greatest intro ever. Because we do video, just so you know. So if you want to enjoy your food first, please. It's the best. This is so real life. I love this shit. Luke, it's recording, so we got everything set up on our side, right?
Everything's good.
All right, so I'll call you when we're done.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
All right, bye. Okay. Do you want to finish your supper?
That's okay. That's okay.
This is amazing. What do you have for what are you eating?
They're vegan apple cinnamon waffles.
Wow. So it's breakfast. Brunch.
Mm-hmm.
Brunch.
Yeah, brunch.
Okay.
Sure. It's snack time.
I love it. You look so comfortable, and it's like with the wood outside and the inside wood and the greenery and
Really beautiful here. This is like the Zen room.
wow.
Got like puzzles and yeah, it's good.
Nice. Well, welcome back to Maine.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be here.
Oh yeah, this is crazy. How we met it was probably about a year ago on Instagram. However, I came across you, I found you, and then I've been following your posts ever since. Once in a while, I jump in, and we kind of got to know each other a little bit over the year. And then I think it was this past December where you kind of put out there that you're going to be heading out for the next 6 months.
Yes.
Yeah. And then I reached out to you and I said, I'd love to, when you get back, have a chance to do a podcast if you're open to it. And this thing, we were probably looking in July-ish probably.
Yeah.
And due to whatever's going on right now, you got back, and I appreciate you being so flexible to do this now with me.
Yeah, and thank you for being flexible with me too.
Yeah.
So
It's
good. Everything worked out perfect.
It's great. You're comfortable?
Yes.
Good. Well, welcome home. Welcome back to Maine.
I'm really stoked to be here. I love this state so much.
I should say welcome back to the United States, because anybody who's listening, and I'm sure we'll get to it, Abbie's been out of the country for the past probably 4 months or so.
Yep. Yeah, it's been about 4 months, which is crazy because it doesn't feel like that.
Yeah. I mean, you randomly, sort of randomly, just kind of went out and...
Yeah, I didn't really have a plan. I flew into Bangkok, into Thailand, and I knew that I wanted to be gone for a certain period of time, and I bought a round trip, but I bought it with the intention of it really being a one-way. I knew I wasn't going to use my flight home because there's no way I could commit to a date 6 months down the road. And I didn't know where I was going to be. I could have been in Egypt or, I don't know, Mexico, or I don't know where I could have been. But I knew I wanted to go scuba diving, and that was something I wanted to try. And then I somehow accidentally ended up taking a Divemaster course and diving with sharks every day.
I thought you already were a diver. This is something completely new to you?
It's totally new to me.
Wow, because I saw you and I thought, like, damn, she's like a professional. Like, I had no idea it was your first time.
I'm a PADI professional now.
Congratulations. Master? Scuba master?
Yeah, I guess. Dive master. Yeah. I haven't I'm not an instructor or anything like that. It's not that official.
It's pretty, when you swim with sharks, that shit is official. I don't know. That's pretty official to me, right?
Yeah, it's been a really neat experience, and really, honestly, life changing. Seeing the ocean that way, and I've always been a conservationist, and I went to school for environmental science. I'm finishing my degree in anthropology with a concentration in sustainable development. So part of I'm writing a thesis paper right now, and I'm actually writing it on the socioeconomics of sharks. And that was heavily influenced by my experience in the Philippines, which is where I was diving with sharks every day.
Yeah.
But uh, yeah, it just kind of all fell into this big cluster of like finding this activity that was like calling to my education, but also my personal interests, and all these different puzzle pieces of my life just kind of like met in one place when I started.
Do you feel like your life just kind of connected recently? It all came together?
Yeah, like all of these little bits and pieces that I've felt really frustrated with and a little bit lost about, which I mean, I'm not saying I'm found entirely, because that I think is a lifelong journey, but uh, there was something really special about that experience that taught me a lot and showed me a lot about like what I really was passionate about, and it reminded me like why I went to school in the first place, because I was feeling really frustrated with school. I was feeling really frustrated with finding like a little niche that I felt like I belonged in, where I could also, thank you, use my education.
This is great.
It's my treat.
They're welcome to say hello. We accept as many guests as you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's Nicole.
Hi, Nicole.
So yeah, it definitely felt like that came together a lot for me, by doing that. And just traveling through Asia too with absolutely no plan was a little wild. Like not having any idea like where I was going to go next was pretty exhilarating.
There's nothing, I mean, I don't know you, but from what I know, there's nothing traditional about you. And I'm sure there's things that are traditional. But I love who you are. And I thought about this when I first kind of found you. You weren't, when I found you on Instagram, you're not a content creator per se, but you're also not what I call a senseless poster, meaning kind of just post whatever you're just for the sense of posting. And I felt like you always document your life with extreme vulnerability. And I don't think you even do that, maybe even knowing, purposely doing it. It's just, there's so much vulnerability in what you document. And there was one thing that you said right before you left for the trip, which really made me want to reach out to you and have this conversation when you got back. And I get the chills kind of reading it. You said, life really can be what you want it to be. I've struggled a lot with anxiety and depression. I often feel lost and without purpose, to the point it tears apart my soul from the inside out. I lose myself. Traveling is my antidepressant. It is my purpose. And it's interesting of what you just said now, that post-trip, how many things may have come together since then.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a beautiful statement. It's a very deep, vulnerable statement, but I feel that this led you somewhere else now for where we're talking today.
Yeah. And so because traveling is a really like big part of my life and it's really important, one of the coolest things about the dive industry, whether you work in like the ecology aspect or like the actual industry doing dive guiding or doing like teaching industry, there's the opportunity for travel is just endless. And that was something too that felt like that was a piece of the puzzle. You know, I found this thing that would allow me to still be able to travel, because that is really important to me. I cannot picture my life just in one or two spots. Like I need to seek like more, I guess. Although I do appreciate like the comforts of home. Like I do love being home and I love the familiar, but I also really love the unfamiliar. Like being out of my comfort zone is one of the best feelings, and it's when I feel like the most growth, and it's when I feel like happiest is when I can just really just put myself out there and meet all these different people, and I can be exactly who I am because none of these people hold me to any kind of expectation, and they have no preconceived notions of me. So it's like I have literally nothing to lose, nothing, because it's like, you know what, if I meet you and you don't like me or we don't see eye to eye, that's fine, because like I'll be in the next country next week and I'll never to see you again.
And that's
that never happens. I've never really met traveling that I didn't.
And that's something I've called you is a life explorer. And I said living a life of color. And I kind of went for the color thing today of that's how I felt that represents you is, but you're a life explorer. And it's a beautiful place to be where so many struggle with just simply existing because they're afraid to come out of that familiarity of that comfort zone that they live in. And so without coming out of there, I mean, you cannot grow. So you're literally like locking yourself in this small box of life. And that's what I love about you is that you've like, fuck this box, you know, right? It's
literally.
Yeah.
just break out. Honestly, I've really been against the grain kind of person since I was a kid. I was really, really shy as a kid, and I was definitely like more of an introvert in my younger years. And then as I grew into a teenager, I was like kind of edgy, tomboy, skateboarded, like was into, weird music kind of thing, dyed my hair. It was just like an outcast, but got along with all the popular kids and was, I don't know how to really explain it, but I was always like constantly pushing boundaries when I was young. And I guess I never really connected any of my youth with kind of how I ended up where I am now. That was something that I always was like kind of unsure of, but I can confidently say I've always been an explorer ever since I was a little girl, always, and always in nature. I've always loved like being outside and like digging in the dirt and, even if it's like a new part of the stream, just going there was always so exciting for me.
Did you grow up in Maine?
I did. I grew up in northern Maine,
Okay.
a little town called Mapleton, which is right outside of Presque Isle. It was good. Big yard, huge rolling hills, lots of snowboard accidents, dirt bike accidents. I had 5 brothers.
Wow.
Only girl, middle child.
So 5 brothers and you?
Yes.
That's a big family.
3 of them older, 2 of them younger.
Wow.
And I wanted to be just like my older brothers when I was younger. I would like steal their clothes and everything they did. I tried to like one up them and do it better. And it was good.
Well, I mean, what was that like in a house of that many people?
Well, I had my own room, and I was the only one that had my own room because I was the only girl. So like my 3 older brothers shared a room, and then my 2 younger brothers shared a room. So that part wasn't that bad because I did have my own space. The bathroom was hard. That was a tough thing. And getting ready for school and stuff like that. It was a little chaotic. Definitely chaotic.
Do you think that the upbringing like that is why you're able to kind of just go anywhere and kind of adjust because you're used to it's a different lifestyle?
Yeah. Yes. And there's a lot of other stuff about, my childhood and stuff like that have made me a really adaptable person.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I can find comfort in almost any situation, Like I'll tell you right now, if you go to Asia, you can just like, if you don't have your own toilet paper, you're screwed. Like, forget about it. Like maybe if you're in a really nice place, but just that's like the number one advice I can give to anybody going to Asia is carry your own toilet paper with you 100% of the time. Even when you think you don't need it, you will need it. So
That's a life lesson right there. That's a serious life lesson.
Yeah, right. Toilet paper, like they don't have the toilet paper crisis over there. They're always in the toilet paper crisis.
That's crazy. Yeah, one thing you've been very vocal about is depression and anxiety, and if that's something you've had for your whole life
Yeah,
or
I
growing
was
up.
definitely really anxious as a little kid. I guess I didn't really think of that, but looking back on some of my like behaviors and like my OCD, I've um, moderate OCD, which I think is where a lot of my anxiety comes from, which I think I inherited from my father. My dad is extremely OCD. Um, and as I grew into a teenager, I mean, I remember my parents trying to put me on Prozac when I was like 12 because I was going through like my edgy phase. But really, I was just like going through puberty, just like every other kid. But my parents, for some reason, were like, well, this needs to be medicated. And I really didn't need to be medicated. I think that I just had a lot of normal hormones. Um, but I think that whole experience kind of made me feel like something is wrong with me. Like, what's wrong with me? Why do I need to be on medication? And that I really got inside my head when I was young. Um, but then as I got older, probably early 20s, I started getting really bad seasonal depression. And it still progressively gets quite a bit worse. And it's usually triggered by experiences. Um, and sometimes my anxiety is definitely for no reason at all. Like I just wake up and I'm like, you know what? Not today. I don't want to do today. I'll pass. Today is the day where I just want to exist and just get through it.
Do you see patterns on when you say there's certain experiences that I guess triggered it? So there are patterns in certain, what could possibly
Yeah.
lead you there.
Yeah. And the more I learn about myself and the more I get to know myself, and traveling really helps me with that, the more that I can kind of predict, when things are going to happen and take more like preventative care for it. Like, oh, I'm starting to feel a little weird, and honestly, just being open and honest about the struggle too. Like when I feel like that, I like to share it on social media because I know I'm not alone. And it reminds me that I'm like not alone. Because every time I do that, there's so much like love and support. Um, nothing bad has ever come from me sharing anything. Not one thing ever. Nobody's ever once been like, wow, you shouldn't share that. Or like, I can't even think of anything because what bad is going to come from that, And
It's not a selfish thing. It's a selfless thing by sharing that, because so many can relate that are probably feeling similar things, but they feel like they can't express it or relate to somebody. So when you come out and have these conversations, so many more can relate to you, and it's a huge thing by you doing that.
yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
did I lose you, or are you still there?
I'm still here. Can
Okay,
you hear me?
I can.
Okay.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, it's I think it's really important that more people do that too, because in today's world, social media is really this like big, like my life is perfect kind of thing. And it's cool because we're starting to see influencers kind of shy away from that. There's like a new trend with influencers where they do the Instagram versus reality thing.
Yeah.
I'm really glad that's happening, but I feel like I'm seeing the reality portion start to go downhill back to like it's just like new Instagram versus old Instagram, but there's still not a raw aspect to some of it. And I really appreciate the people that are like just really, really, really what they do. I wish that there were more of big, those big names.
Yeah.
And the people that didn't like Photoshop their photos, especially their travel photos, like photoshopping people out of it, or just shaping this vision of the site that is totally not what it is at all, which is just Bali. Don't go to Bali. Bali sucks. Bali's horrible. Bali is like it's an island that is an Instagram post that is fake.
Yeah,
I feel strongly about that.
I can say. Well, when I talk about reality, I think you're relevant today when you can be so vulnerable like you are. And even like when the screen came on, you're sitting here eating. Like I love that, but that's real. I mean, I'm not going to cut that out. Like it's people people have this idea of this perfect world we live in. And then behind the scenes, though, we all have our own struggles.
Yeah.
We all have them. They might look different, but we all have them.
Yeah. The struggle's real. It's real. I think there's a lot of people too that I don't know struggle and maybe don't even realize that they're struggling. Like they haven't acknowledged that yet. And that's one nice thing about posts, maybe my post, but also other people's posts is they can read that and it offers them a chance to kind of reflect on things that maybe they've never thought about within themselves. And I think that's pretty cool too, because I've definitely done that reading some posts. I've read some really vulnerable things and it's really made me think more about my stuff and being like, do I do that type of thing? If that makes any sense.
Yeah, there's definitely a self-awareness to it, and also kind of a place where you're at peace and you can essentially push the ego aside and really put yourself in that and reflect on something. And that's not always easy. And that's why I think today we have so many things where we distract or we create, an illusion or something to look over here so you don't actually see who I am.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely pride myself on just being, for the most part, what you see is what you get. I'm definitely quirky. I've got a lot of weird stuff. I like weird stuff. And there's so many things that I used to be like so ashamed about or that I would never want to share. I would never want anybody to see. And now I'm just like, whatever.
Those are the same things that you should embrace today, though. And you do. Embrace it.
Yeah.
That's who you are.
Yeah.
And I think every day that goes by, you'll be, more grounded and being able to brace deeper into who you are.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm proud to be like what I consider to be unique. And I think everybody has a uniqueness about them. And I think a lot of people are kind of too busy working on trying to meet the status quo that they're losing all of those things that make them unique. They're covering them up or not really sure. But I see a lot of that in the general public. It's just a lot of like very mundane existing.
I think your uniqueness and individuality is such a gift that we're given, and yet so many people are trying to be somebody else. It's interesting how that works.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, I'm lucky. I've worked really hard the last like 4 years to surround myself with people that are very like-minded. Like this place that I'm at, Scott and Nicole, they're floating around somewhere back here in the kitchen. These are some people that like really changed a lot about my life in a really good way.
I love you.
I love you too. Like they've been married for a long time. 24 years. I'm gonna yell it out. They've been married for 24 years, and they're the first people in my life that I've had as like a really positive relationship role model. Like they have such a healthy, loving, happy relationship, and they taught me so much about like openness and affection and things like that. Because I struggle with being like affectionate, like fiercely independent, like ruin relationships independent, just because I'm so just like I don't need anybody, and even when I do need somebody, I don't know how to admit it or ask for help. I struggle with that, and it really just makes relationships hard sometimes because you're losing a really important like trust aspect. So it's almost like, oh, I don't really trust these people with these like really important weird things. So I'm just gonna deal with it myself because I can. But they really helped me learn a little bit more about how you can rely on other people and you can be open and
Do you, feel,
romantic friendship.
do you feel that you would lose your independence if you became vulnerable with your partner in a relationship? Is that the fear?
Yeah, a lot of that. Yeah, like being reliant on somebody else. Like I don't really like the thought of that. I'm like, I used to not even do it with friends, and now I'm like, oh, but well, that's what friends are for. But doing that with like a romantic partner, it would just be like a really long, slow road for me. It
It's
wouldn't.
it's in a healthy relationship, then that should not be an issue. It's to have, I always call it a threesome, but three relationships in one, where you continue your independence and your relationship with yourself, and your partner does too, and then the two of you come together to support each other. But that doesn't take anything away from you or make you less of a person or weaker. However, in a toxic relationship, if your other partner, it becomes a toxic thing, that's where you can easily lose yourself. So I
Yeah,
think it's not about becoming vulnerable. I think it's a beautiful thing to be vulnerable with a partner and be able to be supportive of each other. That doesn't mean you're relying on them and they're carrying you. You still can maintain that independence and not lose it.
yeah,
In fact, it makes you stronger and the relationship stronger by finding the partner where you can have that type of relationship with. But they have to be individually or equally as healthy.
yeah, yeah. And I think I just haven't really found that.
Yeah, yeah.
Like that's a pretty interesting partners. I like all really amazing people, but also just really very not okay with the fact that I didn't need them for things like I don't know, taking care of the maintenance of my car or like really things that like they would almost just be insulted that I'd prefer to just do them on my own.
That sounds almost like a controlling thing on their part, though. That's not on you. Like,
Yeah.
I I mean, I would love if my girlfriend said that she was doing those things on her own. I would be so supportive. I'd be great.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be upset at all. But that's her independence. So if I was questioning her on that or holding you back, then I would be trying to control you, which then is a toxic component or element of relationship.
That's true. Yeah, I feel like a lot of guys in this state, especially in the rural areas, are just very like macho. I'm a dude. This is what my job is. I need to take care of my woman, kind of thing. And it just doesn't like that type of stuff doesn't translate well with me because I'm just like, no, I don't need or want you for this. And that I think is where I feel like my independence starts going away is when people want to do like too much stuff for me. I'm like, I don't like, I appreciate it, but also like that just makes me feel like you're telling me that like you think that I'm not capable of doing it on my own. But there's, I think, a fine line for me between somebody wanting to be kind and help and somebody like taking it one step too far. And
It's insecurities.
yeah,
It's insecurities on their part.
yeah, yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I hope none of my ex-boyfriends are watching this. Actually, no, I hope they all do.
we can all
You
we can all learn from this.
ex-boyfriends are better. Oh, just kidding.
You know that you will keep probably attracting the same type of person until you can heal those parts inside you.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree with that. Yeah. I've really enjoyed being single, um, especially like through the journey of traveling. I think that was really nice. Uh, Um, and just like for just the availability to meet people just because you don't have any sort of obligation of time to anybody. So I think if you were in a relationship and you were traveling like that, you would need to set aside time to still connect with your partner while you were gone. That would be really important. And I think that would have been really hard for me because this was a very like soul searching, like self journey. And
Yeah.
I think if I shared too much of that with somebody else, that I wouldn't have gotten all of the things that I had wanted out of it. I think I would have done myself a disservice in a way.
So many, they need the distraction. They don't know how to spend time with themselves. And I love what you did. You did it perfectly because you took the time to spend to really get to know yourself. This, as you said, it's a solo mission, it's a solo trip. It really, too few people take advantage of being able to spend time with themselves and get to know themselves. So I can't even imagine, what you discovered, your most deeper inner self throughout the past 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
You should be really proud of yourself for that. I mean, it's huge. That would change the course of your life.
Yeah. I'm really proud of myself for making that dream come true. I mean, I had always been like, yeah, I want to backpack like across the world someday. I want to go here. I want to go there. I want to do this. I want to do that. And for the longest time, so I'm 29, and in my early 20s, I worked in insurance, and I was like, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to do that. I'm never going to be able to afford that. You know, this, that excuse, whatever. Um, and then I was kayaking with one of my ex-boyfriends, Cameron, who's great, by the way. He did not suck. We just grew apart. And, I was like complaining about my job, and he just like turned to me while we're kayaking, which I called out of work this day, by the way. I was like, I can't go to work today. I'm miserable. I hate this. I was 23 years old. And he's like, dude, just quit. I was like, what do you mean just quit? He was like, just quit. He's like, just quit and go to school, get a job bartending or something. Just quit. And I'm like, I can't just quit. And he's like, yeah,
You can.
yeah, why not? And I literally quit the next day.
How did that feel?
It felt so good.
Was it liberating?
It was really liberating.
Yeah.
And then my boss was like, no, whatever, you're not quitting. And I was like, no, I'm serious, I'm quitting. And she was like, what? I'm like, yeah, I'll stay until like you find somebody. I'll help you find someone. But like, yeah, I'm quitting. And she's like, oh, okay. So I went and I got a job bartending, and I stayed on at the office part-time for a long time. And then I worked from home for her doing like random underwriting stuff for a short period of time too, because I just couldn't just like cut the tie for some reason. And then finally I was like, okay, I gotta just cold turkey this. Like I can't do this anymore. But then I started bartending and going to school. And then I actually moved in here where I'm at now with Scott and Nicole, which was a little closer to school, and that was really nice. And then I took my second solo traveling trip to Guatemala, and that was really life altering for me too. And that was years ago. And it's like, so I took like a 10-day trip, and then I took like a month-long trip, and then I took like a little bit longer trip. So I've been taking all of these like small solo trips that have been building up to this like really long solo trip. But I really never thought that this was going to be possible. And like financially, I was like really worried about it. And a lot of people ask me like, how do you afford to travel? How are you able to do all this stuff? And, where do you get your money from? I work 120 hours a week, 6 months out of the year. I work my ass off. I barely sleep. Like I worked 5 jobs last summer. And I'm not exaggerating. I worked at 5 different places. And I had maybe 6 days off for the entire summer, from May to October. 6 days, maybe. And one of them was because I had an employee party that I went to. I was so tired at my employee party that I like couldn't even hang out and party, and I fell asleep at 4 p.m. But it's it's not like that was easy. I sacrificed so much to be able to do that. And for some people, sacrificing that much time isn't worth it. You know, they're like, oh, well, then you're not really living for 6 months. But for me, it is worth it. And, you know, then I get to experience fully 6 months of not working. And that drastic change, too, taught me a lot about myself, being occupied constantly by a job and by school, and then like cold turkey not being occupied by anything. That I struggled with that in the very beginning of the trip. Like, wow, what am I doing? I feel like I'm like wasting my time. But that went away so fast.
Yeah.
It's so fast that just disappeared.
It's Abbie time. I mean, there's two different Abbie times. Is one is people love to complain, as we know, and to, you know, be a victim of their life by, you know, first off, it's always being very negative. Why are you working so much? And then on the other side, I'm sure you're probably getting, why are you taking 6 months off? So no matter what, that's where you block out all the noise and you live your life. Like it's a mindset of think about what you just accomplished. You worked 120 hours for that long because you had a goal in mind. So think about that in I'm going to call it a short period of time in the big scheme of things of your life. This, you know, year of working between that and then being the trip was probably about a year, right?
Yeah.
So think about what you can accomplish, like just the mindset. You can accomplish anything you want. Just you set a goal and you go for it.
Yeah, exactly. And so my first week of this trip, I was like just walking around this little island in Thailand called Koh Tao. And I stumbled into a bookshop, and they had this pile of books that were books for trade. And I had a book that I had just finished. So I'm like, oh, this is perfect. There was only one English book in that whole pile. So I'm like, I'll just take the only English book there is. There was this guy. His name was Neil Thurbin, I think. I know his first name was Neil. And he wrote a book called You Can that was about an ultra marathon he did in the Yukon. So this guy's done like ultra marathons all over the place. So it was about him creating something called the 7 Ps. And it was a book of, he's like, you know, I thought of this 7 Ps plan as I was like going through the Yukon. And one of the things that really stuck with me when I read this book was he said, if your dreams and your goals do not scare the shit out of you, then they're not big enough.
Yep.
Like simply put, like if you think your goal is unattainable, then you're on the right track. And that's going to stick with me for the rest of my life. And I'm going to set really ridiculous goals. Good
for you. You know, the line that I use in the beginning of this podcast is, how far are you willing to go to become you?
Yeah.
And I mean, you define that.
Yeah. Yes.
I love that.
Yeah, you should read that book. I feel like you would probably love it.
I'm sure I would love that.
The info on it, just because it's really cool, and it goes through all of these steps of the planning, but also really amazing story about a guy who did something really physically amazing. Just doing that ultra marathon is that alone, you know, through the conditions there is incredible. I think only like 3 people finished that year. It was a really crazy year. So it's just a good story in general. And just that guy, you know, his whole story is really inspirational.
I love stories like that. I love the people with the mindset. I love Wim Hof. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Wim Hof or Dorian Yates, but people with that mindset that can accomplish just anything. Yeah, it's important. And some people think that that's like so crazy, and they look at these people who are just really out there doing it, and they're just like, what is that person doing? It's like, that person is fucking they're living their life, and whatever, you know, their challenge that they're going after, and it could be, you know, a million different things, but that mindset you can apply it anywhere to anything.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. One group of people that get so much flack right now is, and I mean, I will never buy anything from the people that solicit me on Facebook, But I have so much respect for the people who are out there doing their internet business, the Beachbody, the Ronan Fields, and all those countless other things that I can't even think of right now. All the people that are out there like working hard every day, posting every day, and just not caring at all what anybody thinks. I have so much respect for those people. Like, just, everyone's like, oh, it's a pyramid scheme, leave me out of it. And these people are just like, you know what, I'm going after this. And my friend Hannah, like, that's her only source of income, is doing one of those businesses. And she's been doing it for 6 years, and she makes enough money to support herself. And she just like bought a house. And it's like, she never would have been able to achieve that if she listened to everybody that was saying like, don't do it, it's a pyramid scheme, blah, blah, blah. No, she just went after it, and she went hard, and she got a lot of respect for people like that.
What's her name? What's her name? Can you hear me?
Hannah.
Oh, Hannah.
Her name is.
Is Hannah happy?
Yeah.
Is she truly happy?
Is so happy, and
That's
you
all.
can just see it like in her face, and you can hear it in her voice. Like, she's like hyped every day. She's so hyped about life.
See, I'm smiling. I'm pumped for her. Like, because the only way you can get there is you have to block out everything. You block out the negativity, but you also have to block out the positive. You shut everything out, because what happens is you resent everybody who holds you back. And even though, they can tell you everything, and ultimately it's you that holds yourself back, you wind up resenting everybody that's trying to pull you back if you don't go for it.
Yeah.
And so a person like that, I love, who they can just, they know exactly what they want to do in life, and nothing will hold them back. I don't care what it is. Like, if you can't go over the wall, you go around it. You'll figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. Dig a hole under it.
Fuck
Whatever.
it. You'll make it.
Works.
Yeah. I love that mindset.
Yeah, me too. It's really important to have, and really inspiring to see in every way, shape, and form, no matter what it is that people are doing.
Yeah. Now you have a very strong relationship with your mother.
Yeah, and that
it's a very special one.
Yeah, and so that's and my mom and I did not have a good relationship growing up, and that's why it's even more special to me now, because we really struggled to connect when I was younger, because we're really different people in so many ways. And we've worked really, really hard to build this strong bond together, aside from just like the traditional, mother-daughter thing. And that is one of the coolest things to me. And I've learned so much about my mom the last couple years, and we've, been writing stuff down too. I'm like, when was your first kiss, and what was your favorite band as a kid, and what was your favorite movie, and do you have any like scents that remind you of things, like weird questions that you wouldn't really know about people. Tell me about your first boyfriend. What was your first heartbreak like? Did you ride the bus to school? And like, we started writing all of this stuff down. And it's been a really neat process to learn about her in that way, because you can be with somebody every single day and still know nothing about them.
Yep.
And that's made, I think, our relationship really special. And it's really helped us grow closer, but also like heal a lot of bonds that needed healing, I guess,
That dynamic that you just described, is that something that is missing in your romantic relationships, but you formed it now with your mom?
Yeah.
Were you able to get that deep connection with somebody?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Because it's that level of connection is really important to me. Like, if I can't connect with somebody on a very deep spiritual level, or if a person just seems like they're just a really surface person, I really struggle with that, because like I don't feel intellectually stimulated at all, and I'm like, this is really boring for me.
Yeah.
And my mom, my mom and I just never could never agree on anything. I mean, like she tried to put me in a dress for fifth graduation, and I like went out back and changed into like cargo shorts and a Dare t-shirt, She's like, "Oh, Abby's gonna walk on stage in this dress finally," and I like walk out in a baggy t-shirt and baggy shorts, and she just is sobbing, and that describes mine and my mom's relationship perfectly right there.
I feel like there's a contrast, which was obviously not working at the time, but now it's like this beautiful contrast where you guys are able to just connect on such a different level now and have a understanding of each other's perspective, or at least an appreciation for, if not an understanding of.
Yeah, and honestly, forgiveness was a really big part of that too. My mom went through a really difficult patch while we were teenagers, and we didn't see her much, and it was very, very complicated. And it required a lot of forgiveness on my end, but also a lot of forgiveness on her end, because she needed to really forgive herself. Because she was feeling a lot of guilt and was very much, I'm a bad mom, I'm a bad mom, I'm a bad mom. And that was when she was feeling like that, it was really hindering us building our relationship, because she was so stuck in the past and she was so stuck on her mistakes that she wasn't even like allowing herself to move into the role of being a good mom. And finally, I'm like, "Mom, I have forgiven you. My brothers, they've forgiven you. Like, you really need to forgive yourself, and you got to forgive yourself, and then we can really move forward from this." And she did. And ever since that happened, like, it's just been like a pretty constant stream of us moving forward. I mean, we still have setbacks. What family doesn't? And also, I'm pretty open about this. My mom is terminally ill now. She's got metastatic breast cancer, and we're about 3 years in to the 5-year diagnosis. So that's been a really difficult battle for our family, but it's also like brought us together in a lot of unexpected ways. And it's, my mom is like a really unique person. She's really special. She's also really hilarious too. It's something that I learned about her that I could say that I didn't really know was how funny she was, how sick and twisted her sense of humor is. Like, she's like, there's like an expired milk in the fridge, and you'd be like, "Oh, Mom, the milk, is expired. I'm going to throw it out." And she'll be like, "Oh, geez, past its expiration date. That's going to be me soon." And I'm like, "Don't say that stuff." But it's like also kind of funny.
That's great to feel that, secure at this time.
Yeah.
And you said she's very, unique and special, but she also has a very unique and special daughter. So I can see it's great that you guys have come, so far and have this beautiful bond now.
Yeah. She's pretty awesome.
That's awesome.
In her own ways.
You have the Clean Air Ride, right? Is it called the Clean Air Ride, or am I getting that right?
Yeah, so it's called the American Lung Association Trek Across Maine. It is the like cycle for air. And so I do this. This will be my 5th year. And it's essentially you just ride a bicycle 180 miles across the state of Maine. Beautiful, beautiful ride. And you raise money for the American Lung Association, and they do a ton of research. And now with this coronavirus going on, this association is more important, than it has been in the past, just especially because this affects your respiratory so much. But this was a really like close to home thing for me because of, my mom, and it's a beautiful event because all of these people have different reasons for riding. And you hear some stories while you're on this bike ride that are so inspirational and moving. And you also just get to meet people that are also in your situation or have been in your situation. And that really helps with coping. That's been really good for me. And I started this ride not because of my mom, which is really fascinating. I'd started it a couple years earlier because my friend's dad had died of lung cancer, somebody that I worked with. And now, my mom's cancer had entered her lungs. So it's metastatic breast cancer, which just means it enters other parts of your body. So she's had a lot of issues with her lungs, and the Lung Association has like directly impacted the way that her medical stuff has been dealt with. So I'm really grateful to this organization. And it's just like it's just really such a cool event. That's so nice for Maine too. And, there's an environmental aspect there as well, because it's about keeping the air clean. Maine has some of the highest asthma rates in the entire U.S., and it's not even from our pollution. It's from the pollution coming over from the West, just because of the way the wind stream works. And so like that, the environment aspect is important to me. The health aspect is important to me. Plus, I just love riding my bike. I love the people. There's a guy that does it on a unicycle.
That's
180 miles unicycle.
I love that.
And that's
badass.
That's cool. There's people that are 85 that are finishing it. Like, it's such a cool event. And it's the Lung Association. I'm pretty sure they do it in all 50 states. I think every state has one. And it's even if you don't ride a bike, it's a good time to start.
When is that?
It's Father's Day weekend.
Okay.
So June 16, 17, 18.
That's a hell of an experience. And I know you included, was there a post where you can contribute to that, correct? I'll include that with this, with the
that
podcast.
Is on my Instagram. You can just click the link there and it brings you directly to that page. Cycle for Air.
I'll include
it's
that.
right there.
Yeah.
So cool. There's so much information on the site.
I can see how happy you get, how energized you get from it. So I'll definitely include that.
I'm excited.
I know it feels good to you. I know it's important to you.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. This was great. This was I don't know how long we just went for, but I hope we capture the whole thing on film here, and I guess we'll find out afterwards.
Yeah, right.
But I appreciate you sharing your time with me and being flexible, and I'm glad that we had this opportunity. And I mean, you said a lot, so thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
It was great having the conversation, and I'll be in touch shortly with you.
Awesome. Have a good day.
You as well. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.